You're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. We're going to talk today about, I figured what's going on right now is a lot of us, it's in the holiday season coming up. We're here. It's that time. And I feel like we need to talk about probably some guidance and some health stuff that we can do to keep ourselves healthy and to really connect with our personal growth. And I think that a lot of times when we have a lot of responsibilities and there's a lot of things that are going on, we have a tendency of overlooking that. We have a tendency of not doing that. And I think let's talk about that today, because I think if anything, we need to connect back with ourselves and we need to kind of denoise the things. I feel like there's so much noise and so many things going on right now on this planet. It's just so much all at one time. It's like, how do we put things in perspective? How do we do it all the time? And how do we do it sometimes during the time of year that seems to be a lot going on, a lot of things happening, a lot of responsibilities on top of the other responsibilities that you have, all those things. And so let's talk about that today, because I think that we need to get aware of what we can do to protect ourselves, get aware of what we can do to bypass some of the pain that we might be dealing with or some of the struggles that we might be having, and also be able to eliminate some of the negativity or problems in our life that we might be dealing with, but we just don't know how to deal with it. I'm so glad to be back on the air today. And, I've been thinking about the concept of, when we get overwhelmed. And I think that there's a lot of folks out there that get overwhelmed. And I think we get overwhelmed, especially during this time of the year, because I think a lot of us are living in the future thinking. We have a tendency of doing that future thinking of, what's going to happen? How is my life going to change? The future thinking. And it really keeps us kicking the can down the road, right? We're constantly thinking about what's going to happen and the plans that we have. And once that comes around, then I can begin to live. I've been looking for this for so long. I've been looking toward this. I've been looking for this experience or this day. And it's like all of a sudden we can actually begin to live. And I understand where that happens. And sometimes we're in so much stress and anxiety that we're constantly kicking the can down the road, hoping to feel that way or to get to that experience that we've been waiting for. And a lot of times when we do this, and I don't know about you, but a lot of times when we do this, I always feel like it's kind of a letdown, because what we've been dealing with is that we haven't really been living in the moment or experiencing it. And what we were hoping to experience is not at the level that we thought it was going to be, because we've been making it out to be something big this whole time. I also think that a lot of us have a tendency of living in the past with memories. And memories are great, but I feel that, again, it takes us off target. It also might put us in a state of mind that might not be joy-filled, right? Because we might be living in that past situation, that past memory, and having maybe fear or resentment, and then having maybe fear that it's going to come back around this time around. And I find that it's interesting, because I feel like we put so much stock into various days of the year. I always think that that's a funny human thing to do, is that we put stock in our birthdays, which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying that we shouldn't love our birthdays, but we put stock on the birthdays. We put stock on lots of different things that maybe are cool to put stock into, but we don't need to be looking toward that or future thinking into that. And I think we do that quite often. I also think it's interesting too that I feel that many of us, because of the responsibility level, I feel that that's a huge thing that we end up needing to look at being mindful. And I think the mindfulness situation, and I don't know if you've actually experienced the mindfulness situation, but I feel like when we actually are able to be mindful, and that takes skill, right? Because that's what Buddhist monks do. Buddhist monks work on this mindfulness concept of eliminating all thought, right? And it takes a long time. And it's interesting, once you finally do eliminate all thought, all of a sudden your brain is telling you that there's a problem because you're not thinking. So it's a very interesting dynamic. However, when we begin to work on that mindfulness, we're able to be in that moment, actually feel what that moment's like. And it's nice when you're able to do that, and it can be really challenging. So many of you might be experiencing some stress or anxiety, or dealing with some pain or drama at work or home, what have you. And it can be hard to get into that mindfulness state because you're in a sense of panic, you're in a state of fear, whatever that is. And so in order to begin to get there, we have to start eliminating some of the stressors in our life and some of the things that are not adding to our quality of life. And I'm obviously not advocating everybody to go out and quit their job tomorrow or anything like that. But what I'm saying is we need to actually be aware of what is causing us stress. And I know that lately, many of you out there are probably empathic in nature, and some of you might be highly sensitive people as well. And being a highly sensitive person is a skill. It's a gift, right? It's not something to be mocked. It's not something to be made fun of. It's a true gift. And many people that are highly sensitive are also very empathic. You're able to feel for other people. You're able to have that connection, which is so powerful. But that in and of itself has to be managed. Okay. One of the things that I find often is that when people are empathic and sensitive, they can be empathic and sensitive sometimes to the wrong things. And what I mean by that is that you can open yourself up to be a target, or you can open yourself up to things, people, and situations, and you have these feelings and you care about them, right? You care about them in the process. You care about the people, but you might be feeling for them. You might be feeling to them and being empathic to them to a level that they're not even aware of, to a level that they're not even aware of in their own self. And let me give you a good example of that. And I don't want to turn this into Narcissism 101 today, but I know a lot of y'all we do like to talk about narcissism. But when somebody is a true narcissist, right, they have very little empathy, if any. The idea of caring about other people is really non-existent. And it's interesting because in that process, we as empaths, we as highly sensitive people, HSP, right? Okay, when you are around people like that, you kind of feel like you feel at their core. You feel them for who they are, below the mask and underneath all the mask and the covers. But the problem is they're not acting from that place. So you're giving them more. You're giving them more than you need to give them. Okay. And I know that some of you are dealing with the holiday season and you're going to have to be hanging out with some family members or some folks that you really just don't get along with. Okay. If they weren't your family, you sure the heck wouldn't be hanging out with them on Hanukkah or Christmas or whatever holiday you choose to celebrate. And it's interesting because a lot of times when an empath or a highly sensitive person is around someone like this, it can really suck their energy. Right. And so there's a lot of things that we can do to begin to see this. And that's why I don't want to do a holiday specific show, because this is stuff that we have to do all the time. Okay. But specifically, a lot of times during this time of year, there's a tendency of maybe spending time with people that you don't spend time a lot with because you don't have a lot in common, or because they're not very healthy for you to be around. And so I'm just trying to equip you in today's show with some guidance and some support that you can have when you're going through this process. So if when you're in a touchy situation or a stressful conversation, think back to the show and say, "Hey, I got Ashley here. Well, what should I be doing? What can I do to safeguard myself? What can I do to get through this process, unscathed?" And also being actually mindful and actually having something to look back at and enjoy the fact that you were there to some degree, right? We don't have to be in pain and suffering when we're dealing with these folks. And we do not have to allow these people to hurt us or ruin our lives. And so this is a big deal. So one of the things that I want us to realize here, and I'm reminding myself, when I talk about these things, it's not just, oh, do this, do that, do this, do that. It actually reminds herself of these things too, right? We have a tendency of forgetting some of this stuff. And it's interesting. I've realized, though, that when you're dealing with folks that aren't very empathic, okay, so they don't have to be a narcissist. There's other people that don't really care, right? And they don't have that feeling for other people, and they're not very sensitive to other people's feelings or needs. When you're dealing with that, one of the things that I think is a really good concept and idea is to be aware of sharing any sort of dreams or aspirations with them. And I'm not asking you to keep your life quiet and not talk about the good things in your life, but quite honestly, I am, I guess, to a degree, is that it's nice to be supported by people that support you, right? And so you have to really look into, who really does support me? Who is really on my side? Who's in my corner, right? Who's my cheerleader? Who am I the cheerleader for? Whose corners am I in? And really support yourself with that. But I feel that sometimes, especially too during the holidays, we can get kind of sentimental, and we can kind of look back at some memories or what have you. And that can also cause us to talk about things or make choices that might not be to the best of our ability, might not be to the highest level of good. And because there's going to be people in your life that really you can cherish, you can talk with, you can have these great conversations with, and there's some people that you really just probably should not. Because I'm trying to make sure that we all kind of come into the situation, experience the situation, and feel good about the experience that we have, feel good about what we're offering, and feel good about leaving and not feeling empty or drained. One of the things too is that I've realized that a lot of times during the year, during the days, during the months, and especially during the season, there's a lot of things going on the news. There's a lot of things going on around the world. And that can be overwhelming too, because we can have a tendency of deflecting into really focusing on those things that we really don't have the ability to change. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't pay attention to things that matter to us and try to work or try to help or bring awareness to things like that. But at the same point, we need to realize how many things are we prepared to bring awareness to, and how many things do we actually have time to do those types of things at the same time of taking care of ourselves, taking care of our mental mindset, right? What our thoughts are. And regulating our thoughts is so interesting, because when you start being aware of your thoughts and you start connecting with your thoughts and you start being aware of what's in your head, and realizing that your head is basically creating these thoughts, your mind is creating these thoughts, and understanding where these thoughts are coming from. When we start feeling down, or we start feeling depressed, or we start feeling angry, or we start feeling sad, all those things are very interesting. They don't just come out of the blue. They come out from some sort of trigger, whether it's a thought in our head, whether it's something that someone else says. Possibly it could be the news is on and you start feeling a certain way based on a situation that's taking place. And so we have to be super, super aware of what we have going in and out of our headset, as far as what we're watching, what we're viewing, what we're listening to, and also, who are we around, the people we're around. We need to be aware of that as well. And then also understanding, how do we feel when we're around certain people? I mean, there's certain people that you might feel great around. And I want you to start analyzing that. The people that really seem to lift you up and you feel great around. You know what I'm saying? I want you to start analyzing that. Who are those people? Start taking note of that. Because if you don't know that, there's a tendency of maybe hanging out with some people or spending time with some people that you might not know, but they're actually bringing you down, making you feel bad, taking away from your energy level. And this takes sheer awareness, right? This takes sheer awareness. We just need to be aware of the people we're hanging out with and how we feel about them. How do we feel about ourselves when we're around them? When we leave, how do we feel? Do we feel happy? Do we feel lighter? Or do we feel completely drained? It might not be that extreme. It could be very subtle, right? And the subtleties are the things that I really want you to look at, because things that are subtle are the things that we need to understand. So stay tuned. We're going to be talking about how to be aware of the energy of those around us, how to know when it's time to get going. There's a time to get going on some of these events, activities, and holiday dinners and lunches and all that stuff. When is it time? We're going to talk about all that. So stay tuned. We got a lot to go over, a lot of tips and tricks to overcome some of the stress and anxiety and to be mindful in the moment. Live your true life perspectives. With me, your host, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time. Well, I'll be back this time in 2 shakes. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm turning off the commercials for the online Facebook and YouTube and stuff, so I have a few minutes. So anyway, I just wanted to say hi to everybody. I'm so glad that y'all tuned in. And I don't know if y'all are having stress or anxiety during this season. It can be stressful for some of us. It can be overwhelming. And, and one of the things that happens a lot of times is that I feel that many of you are safeguarding yourself throughout the year, trying to take care of yourself, trying to be aware of things. But I feel like sometimes during the holidays, we're around maybe people that you're normally not around, doing some things. And I think this is really kind of a wake-up call, not just for this time of year, but I think it's kind of a wake-up call for us all to just kind of start really analyzing who we are in our life. What are we doing for other people? How are we living our life? But also, who around us are really adding to our life, who around us really add to our quality of life, and who around us really don't. And I think this is a big thing that we're going to talk about. Buddy is laying on the couch right now. He's so cute. Adorable, adorable, adorable. And just a sweetheart. He's laying on the top of the couch, actually, like perching like a cat, which is funny. At least he's trying, and now he's sliding off. But anyway, so yeah, everything is good. It's been a wild week. I'm sure, for y'all. It's been a wild week too. When we come back from break the next time, I will reach out to everybody that's commenting in the chat so we can talk and communicate for sure. But I think that many of you are probably very empathic, very caring folks, and so we really need to look at things that we can do to safeguard ourselves, to be able to minimize unhealthy things around us, and be able to see that for what it is. I also feel too that there's a lot of news and there's a lot of things that are going on right now that we are probably a bit overwhelmed with. And I find that we need to kind of minimize that as well and see how much we are dealing with that on a day-to-day basis, because I think sometimes we're not really aware of how often we get kind of indoctrinated into things that may or may not, and usually do not, serve any sort of goodness or purpose, and actually kind of derails us from our personal work. And it can be easy to go down that rabbit hole, and I think many of us have, which is fine. But I think we need to figure out when we go down that rabbit hole and how often we are, and be able to see that for what it is, which is very powerful. But all this stuff is just really about super awareness, being aware, and being honest with ourselves, which is great. And all this goes back to personal growth, right? So, and talking about how to cultivate self-awareness. And we're going to go from there. So we'll have fun today on today's show. And then I definitely will reach out to everybody here on the next break. So here we go. I'm going to go back to the studio here, turn on the satellite uplink, and then we'll be back in a while.
The Ancestors clients have had ancestors that were colonizers, explorers, founders of religions, gunslingers, kings and queens, knights, pirates, heroic soldiers, witches, and witch hunters. Let's find out who the characters are in your family tree. So please reach out today by going to our website, www.dancestorsgenealogy.com. That's DANCESTORS genealogy.com, and fill out a contact request, and we'll get right back to you.
Get in here. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we're talking about guidance, health, and personal growth. Guidance for personal growth and health during this time of the year. How to create that personal awareness and that internal self-awareness. And it's interesting because internal self-awareness to me is like being able to identify values and aspirations, being able to understand how we feel, our behaviors, our thoughts, our feelings, that sort of thing. And it's interesting because when we have that self-awareness, that internal self-awareness, I believe that we just feel better. We have more satisfaction. We have more happiness. We have more joy. At the same time, though, we can be, we have to also be externally self-aware, how other people view us, right? How other people see us, and then how we come off, like the comments we make, the statements we say, the things that we do, because a lot of times people don't, people might not understand. And I found that the more clearer we can be in our word, the better it can be, right? So it's like we, kind of having that connection and that opportunity to be introspective. And I really think that introspection is something that many of you do already, where you begin to challenge your own views, right? We challenge our own views based on our own blind spots. And we challenge those views, right? We challenge the views. We challenge that situation. We challenge the concept. We challenge how we feel about things, and we challenge our thoughts about people and situations. And I think that is self-awareness at the key, is that when we're able to challenge ourselves in the situation and what's happening right now, look at it from all different angles, And it's interesting because I found that oftentimes not everything is all horrible and not everything's all great. Sometimes getting that no is the best thing you could possibly get, right? Sometimes we're never taught that, though. As a kid, it's always about, you always want yes, 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 yes. But when we get the no, sometimes it could be the best thing that we could have ever gotten. It's something that we didn't realize at the time, but it's something that we did not need. And it was interesting in the last few weeks, I've been working with folks and things did not go the way that they had planned. And when we start looking at it from different angles, the best thing that could have happened was the situation that took place, right? And so I think that also many of us are seeking information, we're seeking things. And I think there's so much to be said about understanding kind of what makes us, what keeps us going, what are the things that we need to be doing in our life. So like really looking at the self-care, what are we doing to take care of ourselves and show ourselves that we matter? What are we doing to work on eliminating negativity in our life? Do we have folks around us that display toxic positivity more often than not, and maybe can gaslight you for, ever so often, with that positivity, that toxic positivity? And we've done a show on that. I guess it was a couple months ago, I think. And maybe George can put the link up for the social media for anybody that's watching on social media instead of listening to the radio. But we've been talking about that as well. And I think that right now more than ever, it's like really kind of looking at oneself in discovery mode, right? It's almost like you're in the laboratory and you're learning about yourself and you're categorizing things and you're understanding things and you're working to better understand you, getting a grasp on you and your identity and who you are and how you feel about certain things, which I think is extremely powerful. And it allows us to really kind of, get to know ourselves. I mean, we know a lot of people. You probably know many people in your life and you know them pretty well, but do you really know yourself and what you really care about, what you value, what matters to you? And really start looking at that friend group. Who are the ones that really build you up? Who are the ones that you really connect with? Who are the ones that there's not a lot of meat, and there's not a lot of connection in? And why are you holding on to some of those relationships? And we need to really look at that. Are we doing any people pleasing? These are the things that we need to catch and start understanding and begin to work on so that we can not only safeguard ourselves, but create a happy, healthy, and joy-filled life. Stay tuned. Live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
I hope you've enjoyed my history and lore tales here on Ashley's True Life Show. I know that there are many more amazing stories in your own family that we can discover in your tree. Hi, I'm Dan from Dan Sisters Genealogy. We take the heart.
Everybody, thanks for tuning in. I just turn off the ads for a little while here. Erica, great to see you. How are you doing? Oren, great to see you. How are you? Red-headed Riding Hood. That's cute. Hi, how are you doing? Good to see you. David, hi. Ashley, back in 2019, your videos helped me during a hard time. Thank you. Thank you so much, David, for reaching out, and I appreciate your message, and I'm glad that the videos did help, and that's the only reason why we put those out. So I appreciate it's doing its job, and let me know if there's any content or subject matter that you would like me to cover, because I'd be very interested, and I'd like to do what I can to help and put that content out. Thank you again, David. Mystique, great to see you. How are you doing? Glad that you tuned in. Redheaded, I feel dysregulated around many in my family. It's draining. I think a lot of folks do. I feel a lot of folks do. And that's why I kind of wanted to bring this up today, is that, and I don't want to focus it just on the holiday season, right? Because this is all the time. And some of us only see them in the holiday season, and some of you have to deal with this all year long. Okay. And I get it. Some folks in the family, you wouldn't hang out with them otherwise, right? I mean, you just wouldn't hang out with them if you weren't related. Mystique, I love that. Hi, everyone. Jacqueline, I love learning from Ashley Burgess. I'm never too old to learn how to live my best life. Jacqueline, thank you so much. I hope that you are doing awesome today. And I definitely will discuss. We're going to have some shows coming up in the beginning of the year with a couple of folks that are pretty well known. We're going to be talking about parental alienation. That's a big thing right now, parental alienation. Alienating, the children against, the mother or the father, and creating this dynamic. And we're going to talk about that. So we're going to do some shows on that. So any of y'all that have been dealing with that, in the process of dealing with it, in the middle of it, we're going to be talking about it. Fabby, thank you so much for tuning in. How are you doing? Great to see you. Mystique, I do have some suggestions for dealing with some PTSD. I don't know if we have enough time right now, but I definitely could do a show on that. Do you think that being an empath will make us more susceptible? Yes. Being an empath does make you more susceptible to emotional abuse. Yeah, and so we have to learn how to turn that off sometimes, and we're going to talk about that because it's challenging because we don't want to turn it off. It's like a superpower, right? But we have to be careful what we do with that. We have to be careful, who we kind of feel empathic with, because some of it, to me, if the person's not living that way, and we feel about someone and we're feeling them at a deep level, we might be feeling them at a level that they're not willing to deal with, but it's not really true. We have to step back and really see the situation for what it is, right? Because if somebody's not living that way and we're giving them all this benefit of the doubt, or we're feeling bad for them because they've been through XYZ and we feel for them, but they're not responding in that way to us, it can be very challenging and toxic, right? And so that's something that we really need to work on and really think about how to deal with that. And that's what's so important. Because we are susceptible when we are empathic. We are I would say, not just susceptible, but I think very truly we really open ourselves up. And it's great to be an empath. Don't get me wrong. That's a superhero power. But we just need to make sure who we are using that with. And that's why I'm asking you to really analyze, because if there are people around you that are taking advantage of you, or narcissistic in nature, or don't see things clearly, and you know what I'm talking about, people that just don't see the same thing as you do, trying to explain to them about how you are or what you're doing it's worthless. And all it does is it just drains us and makes us feel sad and tired and upset. So when I return after the break, I'll answer more questions, and we can talk more after this long segment. So we got a long segment here, and we're coming back into the studio.
713291. Again, that's 800-871-3291.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on perspectives. Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. We've been talking about safeguarding ourselves, having that everyday guidance to really be mindful and super aware of the people that we're around. And a lot of times, when we're dealing with the holiday season, we might be around people that we're not always around all the time, and we might not be prepared for the situation. Many of us have also avoided maybe some people that we're going to be seeing during this season on its own. And we have to prepare ourselves for the possibility of interacting with them. We also have to prepare ourselves for dealing with different types of challenging people. And this is for every day. I mean, that's why it's like you can talk about it in this month, but you can really talk about this every day and twice on Sunday. It's just the truth. So like if you're dealing with, for example, people that might not be very empathic, maybe people that are really challenging, maybe people that question you, maybe people that don't see your value. I've been talking to some clients in the last week, and they're like really kind of overwhelmed because family's coming in, or they're having to go visit family, and they're dealing with the stressors and anxieties of that, and they're not really happy with being around certain people. They're very scared about being around certain people, and I understand it. I get it. And you don't want to open yourself up to certain people. You got to be very careful, because some people are really, they might like the fact that you're having a tough time in life. Also, maybe they might be gossipers. They want to gossip about your life, and you got to be careful about the stuff that you tell them. And you really want to think about that. I know that we all love good news, and we all love things that happen. Like when you get that job and you're so happy about it, or you get engaged, or whatever's going on in your life, or you're pregnant or whatever. whatever's going on in your life, whatever it is, whatever floats your boat, whatever makes you happy. There's some people that you can share that information with, and they're going to be happy, and they're going to be really healthy, happy with you. And there's some people that don't. And you have to ask yourself, is this information, should I give this information to this person? Are they deserving of knowing my personal life? And to what level and extent, right, do they deserve? And I know many of you are using gray rocking. You're using that technique where, you basically keep it surfacey and, hey, how's it going? How's the weather? How are your kids? How's the dog? And that's basically as far as it goes. And that's fine. And if that's how you feel and that's the level of security that you have with some people, then you just got to go with it. I'm sure that there's some other people that you might feel better about. You might feel more content in talking about your life and the things that you have going on. But I really want you to look and prepare yourself and ask yourself, who are those people? And really analyze that. One of the things I've also found too is that sometimes we feel like we have to explain ourselves when you just don't. Okay. And that's an interesting thing too. And I think that the programming, and I have some videos coming out here soon, and I'm going to be doing an entire series on some things. But like the programming, for example, of the parental programming, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the child programming and the parental programming. I think this is very important. We have a thought process in our head of what parents are, what they do, what makes a good parent. And it's interesting growing up, and we were told to respect our parents, respect our elders, respect our parents, And it's interesting because what happens though, let's say if a parent is not being a parent, let's say that a parent instead is being mean, maybe aggressive, maybe narcissistic in nature, uncaring, says hateful things, right? If that's the case and you're dealing with that type of situation, we have to begin to understand the parental programming that's in our own mind, because see, what's happening is we have like this disconnect. The parent's supposed to be this great person, but yet the parent's doing X, Y, Z. When the parent is doing this to us, it makes us feel bad. But then there has to be some reason why this is happening, because a parent wouldn't do that to their child that they care about. You see how the disconnect is? And so then it goes back to you're in pain and suffering because of a situation. Okay, get it. But it makes it even harder because you believe that this person's supposed to be on your side, right? Because they're your parent. And so it's like this. It's this juxtaposition of this happening and feeling this way, and then wondering why this is happening because this person's supposed to be in your corner, and they're not. And and the other concept is the child concept. Like, because we're a child and we're a child to these parents, the parent already has the concept that what we might be. So if you have a disconnect with the parent might not be listening to you because they say, why would I listen to you? You're my child. There's a 20-something year age gap. Why would I listen to what you have to say? On the other side too, as a child and as that programming, we might feel smaller than, lesser than, okay? And we might also go back into that childlike state when we're dealing with our family dynamic. And I've had a lot of people, literally in the last few years, and obviously last year was a really random last year. And a lot of people did not see their family last year. Okay. But you go back a year before that, and it was interesting because people would say right when they left the holiday situations, whatever was going on, they literally took days to get back to normal. They took days to get regulated. They took days to get back on solid ground, to feel themselves, because they felt like such a child. They said walking back into the house and, the older brother seemed to be in charge of everything. Or maybe you had, one of your sisters or brothers might be the golden child and you're kind of considered the black sheep, and you kind of relive all these types of labels and programming throughout that 3 or 4 days that you're there. And some of you are lucky. You don't have to experience this at all. Okay. And that's awesome. And some of you experience this, but at a lesser degree, right? It might just be annoying or frustrating. And that's the thing too, is that if something is annoying or frustrating, I don't want you to look back at these times in life with just like, being apathetic or, God, I can't believe I wasted that time. That's the thing, is that I want you to start making the best of it. We don't need to fall into the old programming traps, of being the child and kind of acquiescing to whatever is asked of us. And I think that happens a lot too, because we're used to it, or we don't want to rock the boat. And I'm definitely not saying that we need to all start a fight at the table during the holiday season, but I think there's certain things that you can accept and certain things that you can reject. And I really do think that when you find yourself falling into the old programming or using the old tools, because it's interesting. I had someone tell me the other day, they said that a couple years back, like right when they walked in, they kind of felt like the mood change and they got quieter and they let their sisters and brothers talk all the time. And they just kind of like yes and no and nodded their head. And they said they kind of just went into like this other pseudo personality. And I was like, well, that's really interesting. And we talked about, growing up and how they felt like they didn't have a voice and they didn't feel heard. And it seemed like everybody else at the family got heard and they were the ones that didn't get heard. And they kind of you kind of fall back into those old patterns because it's very real. It's something that you live for 18 years more in the household. And then you go back into that same household with the same people and you play the role out again. And so what I'm asking you, I guess, to do is to start being mindful of those programs. Start being mindful of the programming that we have actually created in our own life, right? Because a lot of the times it's not like it's beneficial to us. It's not like it's helpful to us. It's like we keep playing over and over again the same pattern, the same cycle, the same thing, expecting different results, but we're not really getting it. And that's the thing that I find challenging. And I feel like if we can start looking at that, so, think about it, go back to, and I don't want you to live in the past, but go back to the last time that you spent time with someone where you felt like you kind of went into your shell or you went into kind of an old programming mode or you got shy or quiet. And then look at that, because anytime that you get shy or quiet, that's an indication that you don't feel comfortable. Okay. That's an indication that something is not creating comfort in your life. That's an indication that something is off. And I want you to start analyzing that. Because a lot of times we sweep our feelings under the rug. And that's the situation. And when we're doing that, we're not paying attention to our truth. We're not paying attention to how we truly feel. We're not paying attention to what we need to be doing in our life to safeguard ourselves. Now, sometimes I want you to pay attention when you're truly happy, when you're truly at peace. When are those situations? And what I've found is that the more that we can be in positions where we feel like we can be ourselves, the more we can break some of these program patterns that were created when we didn't feel like it. Because it was interesting. The other day I caught a programming pattern, a small one, but I was at a dinner and I started getting quiet around a couple of people, and it was interesting because I realized that I started kind of digging into it because there was a conversation at the table, so I didn't have to talk. I really don't like talking all the time. I mean, I know you probably think I do because I talk all the time, but I don't always like to talk. I actually like to have some quietness in my life. And so when they were talking, it was great because I got to be introspective at the table, and I was like, what was that? What is this about? Why do I feel quieter on these particular people? Why do I feel kind of almost meek, And I started thinking, and I started realizing that, and it finally came to mind that, and it was interesting, and there's no judgment here, but I just realized that with both of these people in regards, everything that they said to me except for maybe one time, is all talk. None of it's real. All these plans and all these ideas and all these things just never come to fruition, and they're never followed through. And it's basically a dialogue that just never happens. And every time I'm around them, it's just kind of a letdown because I know that nothing's going to happen. We're not going to work on what we talked about working on. So I just stopped. And so what I found is I kind of got into like this little safe zone. But I realized I don't have to be that way. I don't have to act that way. And I realized that I did that, but it was a very big indication into my mind and into who I am to be able to realize, okay, when I get quiet like this, what's the reason? And the reason for the situation was absolutely that. It was very interesting, and I realized that I knew that this person wasn't going to follow through, hasn't done in the past, and so now I realized, so I didn't talk about things that I wanted to do with them. I didn't, when they would go down the rabbit hole of let's work on this or that, I listened, but I didn't add much to it because I know that it's just a waste of breath. But I also realized I didn't have to be meek, or I didn't have to be quiet, and I stood up for myself, and I didn't call anybody out, but I just didn't make any plans, and I stopped going down that program, because sometimes we start playing out the roles with other people. So, for example, I could have just continued on, oh, okay, yeah, we're going to do that. That's great. When do you want to do that? Oh, okay, you're going to call me? Like, they never call. Oh, yeah, okay, so you're going to call. Okay, great. I don't need to do that anymore. I don't need to do that anymore. I mean, there's certain things that you can stop. And, and I think also, too, it's like when we keep doing the same programming and getting the same results, it's tiring. It sucks. It's like when you walk in to say hi to everybody and during the holidays and you try to give everybody a hug and there's that same relative that you say hi to and they give you the cold shoulder and they actually kind of nasty to you. If that's the case, why do we keep doing it? I mean, I understand that we do it because we want to, but do you do it because you want to, or you do it because you think you have to? At some point in time, you got to put your foot down. You don't have to be a jack butt to them when they come in the door, but you don't have to be overly nice. Hi, how's it going? Or you don't have to say anything. Because I've realized that when we start breaking these programs down and we start realizing it, we start to begin to feel more powerful. Okay? Because we don't have to keep doing the same thing and having that same person do the same thing. And sometimes it's good to see what other people do. Sometimes if you're the person that's very empathic and very giving and very caring, and you're constantly caring and giving, and you're feeling a little resentful, you might want to step back. And I'm not saying, oh, stop giving and stop caring. That's not what I'm saying here. But there comes a time when you have to just sit back and see, what are other people doing? How are other people dealing with this? How are other people treating you? And look at it for what it really is. And I'm not trying to get us all down here, because some of the people that you don't even realize that really care about you, you don't even realize it. And there's some analyzation, there's some thoughts, there's some awareness that has to be done right now to really see. Because there's some people that you walk into that room and you should probably say hi to them first. Think about that. Start thinking about what's the grouping. When you walk into a group of friends, who are you saying hi to first? And I'm not saying that it always has to be in order of like the people that you care about the most, but why not? People that have been there for you, gone out of their way for you, done things for you, been there for you, helped you in your life. Make a point. Make a point to be there for them first. And the greatest thing is that when you do that, they realize that you get it too. They realize you get it. And I give this example, and I know that for some of you, this doesn't affect you, but for some of you, it does. When you walk into that holiday event, think about it before you get there. Who deserves the first hi? Who deserves a hug? Who doesn't deserve a hug? Who deserves a big hug and a smile and a gift, and who doesn't? You don't have to do this just to make everybody happy, because remember, when it comes down to it, you got to go home. When it comes down to it, you got to feel good about what happened. And I'm not saying you got to feel good about it. I don't want you to feel any guilt or shame or resentment or anger. I want you to feel good about what you did going into that, showing exactly who you are and being who you need to be. Whether that's with family, whether that's with friends, whatever that looks like. And being truthful in how you feel. Now, I'm not talking about being rude and calling people out, but I'm saying, hey, if that's what you feel about somebody, probably not going up to them and trying to give them a big false hug is really the answer. Probably the answer is to say, hey, and kind of keep on moving, and probably not sit next to them, right? Because you go find the people that care about you and that you care about them, and you circle the wagons. Stay tuned. I'm going to be talking more about this and how to safeguard yourself and how to create a great time this year in a mindfulness, but also just to be true to yourself. That's all it's about, is about being true to ourselves. Stay tuned. Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time. Yeah, I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
I hope you've enjoyed my history and lore tales here on Ashley's True Life Show. I know that there are many more amazing stories in your own family that we can discover in your tree. Hi, I'm Dan from Dancestors Genealogy. We take the hard part of discovering...
Okay, we got a few minutes before we go back. Redheaded, this is good news. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that you were doing better. It'd be interesting to talk with you and see, it's always, It's always powerful when we do things in a powerful way, and sometimes it can be hard. Sometimes it can be hard to do things that we have to do to move on, but sometimes we have to take a break, and we got to safeguard ourselves. You know what I'm saying? If you don't take care of yourself, who's going to take care of you? David, taking myself 1 year, no dating, to quit the bad habits, the screen. I'm feeling awesome. I do remember in your book you took 1 year off. I did. You have a great memory. David has a great memory. I did, and it works marvelously. And I don't like to tell everybody that because they're like, a year? Oh my God, a whole year. What in the heck is Ashley? What's wrong with her? But no, it really does work. It does work. And it works wonders because you really get to know who you are. You explore those boundaries, explore those values, look back at the past relationships, look at how these things happen, understand the situation, connect with that situation, get through it. You know, start letting go. The baggage and the luggage is just programming, right? So we just got to figure out how to let go of that and how it started in the first place and how we keep reliving it with other people. Working on my purpose, grinding every day, working out, intermediate fasting, no social media. Awesome. Keep it up. Keep it up. I'm proud of you. This is good news. Very proud of David. This is great news. Sarah, great to see you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really glad you're here. I was tired of the way that my life was. Always looking for validation. And I think many of us are looking for validation. We have to get right with that because when we get validated by somebody, right, they can take that validation away very quickly. Right? When somebody's very nice to us, they can turn around and be very mean. And so if we give them a lot of power over us, it can be very painful. And when we're looking for validation, it can put us in painful positions, right? When we look for validation, that could put us in places that are painful, that are not good for us to be in. I'm going to go back to the studio, and then I'm going to continue back responding to y'all's thoughts, comments. We're going to go back to that here. I just need to go back to the studio for a few, and then we'll be in this last segment, and then we'll start back up again.
That's 800-461-2114. Paid for by Senior Choice Plans.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we've been talking about concepts, programming, mindfulness, awareness, dealing with families during the holiday, dealing with challenging people, and knowing who to put first, to be quite honest with you. I've realized, and the interesting thing too, and I don't know if you've ever done this, many of you might have big families, and if you do, it's great. This is a great experiment to do. But one of the things that I've realized is that it's interesting when you show up at a big family event or at a big friend event, for example. Many of you might be, celebrating friends events. Okay? Who's the first one to come see you? Who's the first one to walk up to you? Who's the first person to walk outside to help you get your bag? Who's the first person that comes out? Who's the second person that comes out? Because sometimes we have a tendency of just thinking what we're doing all the time, but we don't really look at what other people are doing, and we don't really analyze what that means. And I'm not saying we got to super analyze everybody's actions, because that just is that's not good. Okay, we got to do other things in life than analyze other people's actions. However, it's interesting because I feel that if you start becoming aware of the people that have you on their hierarchy, and you don't have, it doesn't have to be the same, but what I'm saying is that might be an indication of who really feels comfortable with you, who really connects with you, who really feels for you, who really gets your plight, all that great stuff. Very powerful stuff. And I want you to start living that way too. I know that many of you don't want to rock the boat, and that's okay. And many of you don't want to burn bridges. That's okay. But some bridges have already been burned. There is no bridge left. It's just a big cave. There's nothing there. Okay? Don't worry about burning the bridge. The bridge was gone a long time ago, right? So there's some people out there that we just got to let it go. There's some people we just got to move on and keep on moving. There's some people we don't need to have the conversation. We don't need to sit there and talk about the BS. That's not going to matter anyway, because it's just BS. And I'm not saying that you walk in there and go, hey, yeah, get away from me. No, but you just limit the exposure. And this goes for family, friends, work colleagues, You know what I'm saying? Because what I've realized that is I would rather spend more time talking to people that really care about me than dealing with anybody that's a naysayer or a jerk or whatever that looks like. Because they don't deserve it. Why do we want to waste our time interacting with somebody like that when you can get to know other people that are genuine, nice people, healthy people, positive people for you to be around? And this is with everybody concerned. And I know that nowadays we have a tendency of getting sucked into the drama. We get sucked into this type of stuff. Try to avoid that, because that's deflection too. Because what happens is you get sucked into that. You get sucked into that, and it's hard to pull back. You get sucked into that, and it starts taking over your mindset, right? You're not being who you need to be in every single situation because you're too busy dealing with stuff that's just not even worth dealing with. And so I want you to think about this beginning today. Who are the people that you need to reach out to that you haven't reached out to, that you need to say hi to, and you need to show them that you care? Who are some people that you're placating that you need to stop placating? Who are some people that you just need to eliminate from your life? Right? And I'm not saying you got to do it right now and make a big deal about it, but who do you need to start distancing yourself from? Because there's got to be some people. Because you need to have time to spend and cultivate relationships with the people that really do care, that you care about them and they care about you, and it's not a one-way street. These are the relationships that we need to cultivate. These are the things that we want to work on. And these are the things that when you are a highly sensitive person or you are an empath, it's great because guess what? You're fine. Person cares about you. You care about them. You can communicate. Communication is key. And that's what I want for you. That's what I want for you every day of the year. And so really think about that. What are some things that we can do to be aware of who really cares about us? How do we really analyze that? How can we really connect with how we feel around people? How can we be more aware of it? Am I feeling quiet? Am I feeling meek? Am I feeling energized? Am I feeling powerful? Am I feeling like I have a voice in this relationship? Am I feeling like this person can hear me? Do I hear them? Do I listen to what they have to say? Do we communicate? This is powerful stuff. And if there's somebody that you're needing to open up the line of communication, try several times. And if it doesn't work, go on and move on. You tried. You won't have guilt or shame or anything from it as long as you've tried your best, and then you can move on. I want you to have a great rest of your day, a great rest of the weekend. You can check out the podcast on ashleyburgess.com, or you can go to Spreaker or YouTube, and I will be back next week. And I can't wait to see you here next week. So stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget, to live your true life and live your true life perspectives with me, your host, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time. I'll be back this time in 3 shakes. Thank you, Chris.
It is interesting.
Awesome. Thanks for tuning in. Let's look at the chat. Yeah, it's interesting. We had some stuff from Starbucks, and I have acid reflux. Dun 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 dun. Yeah, I know. It's just like, come on, man. It's like just those little eggs. Okay. Let's see here where I left off. Redheaded. It's a bittersweet, but most of my family has passed, so I don't have to deal with them. My kids. Speaking of parental alienation. Yes, and we're going to do some shows on parental alienation and just dealing with that because this is a painful process to be in. Gina, it might be Gina. Thank you for your videos, Ashley, which helped relationship between my son and his narc father. It lifted a huge burden from my son's shoulder. He does not argue and says he is what he is. That's great. That's great. I'm glad to hear that. It's hard, and we have to know what we're dealing with, right? And if we know what we're dealing with, it's a good thing, and we can actually deal with it. Yeah, you shared your videos about how to deal with Narc Parents. I'm so glad you shared these videos. Thank you so much. 23-year-old used to argue with his father all the time. On the other hand, he would treat our daughter and younger son as golden child. And you see, that's the key. That's the hardest thing, is that a lot of times with these folks, they have a tendency of having the favorite. And someone's not the favorite. And that's hard because it's harmful to the kids too, because, we have this situation where one kid's getting all the praise and the other kid's not. And so we have this difficulty as well, which is so challenging because it's just so unfair. It's just so unfair. We're not supposed to have favorites. My son did not like it. It would be antagonistic, just like his father. And that's the thing, is that we go through this process, and as we learn and as we grow and as we begin to understand, there'll be people that we can communicate with. There'll be people that we can't communicate with. There'll be people, honestly, that you just got to step out of the way from. Because no matter what you say or how you say it, they will not get it because they don't want to get it. And that's when you kind of step back and you go, okay, and that's another thing. Am I talking to people that get me, or am I talking to people that literally, honestly do not understand? And that's, and it takes trial and error. And then eventually we realize, because the problem is our programming is like, if they don't understand me, then there's something wrong with me. Is that really true? No. Stu, great to see you. How are you doing? Great that you tuned in. Thank you so much. But going back to that, Gina, I mean, I'm just so glad that you helped your son with that. And I'm glad that I could be helpful too. Because the more information we have, the more power we have. And that's what's so powerful. And we're able to live that way and understand. And because you start seeing the truth. When you start understanding what's going on, then that's, oh my gosh, this is what's been going on the whole time. And it's also, especially when you want your parents to love you and care about you so much. And when that happens, you feel like it's a personal thing when someone else is a favorite. Fabby, everything's great. Thanks. Miss you, and big hug to Buddy. Great to see you. I really appreciate you tuning in. How are you? What you were saying is really important. Unfortunately, we have to let go of those toxic relationships, whether we like it or not. We have to do what's best for us. I've seen more awareness now, and glad you're putting more awareness to this. And I appreciate you, Fabby, you tuning in. Because, right now, more often than not, we have got to begin to see it for what it is. We got to see these relationships for what it is. And you can't sugarcoat it too. Like once you see it and you see it again, you just can't turn the blind eye. And it just depends on how much we can deal with it. How much can we process this? How much do we want this in our lives? And what's the worth value in it? What is it giving back to us? Are we getting something out of it, or are we not? And if you're just getting grief and sadness, I don't need any more helpings of that. I'm good. Pass something else over, but I don't need that. I'm so glad you tuned in. I'm so glad that you're connected with this. I really, really appreciate it. I'm so glad you're here. So I'm glad you can tune in. Thank you. Brian, good to hear from you. How are you doing? Let's see. You're hitting the nail on the head for many points of what I'm dealing with. I'm over-explaining, have a couple of people happy. They think I'm under their control again, have no downtime or solitude to regroup, over-explaining again. Love you. I get it. And when we go through this over-explaining, we're doing it because that person is pushing us to over-explain because they're not accepting our reality. They're not accepting the truth. They're not accepting our truth. And I've realized that when we do over-explain and we get into that feeling and thought process and we have to do it, it's a program, and then they expect it, and they're programmed to expect it, and then we feel like we have to do that because they don't accept it. And a lot of times, if you see, and I think the more over-explaining we do, the more they don't even believe it anyway. And I've realized, too, that I don't think they want to see your truth. Because if I actually see your truth, then I actually have to accept the fact that you have the right to feel a certain way or think a certain way based on your own set of values and feelings. Tobias, thank you so much. Tobias, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. And thank you so much for donating to the cause. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate you. Let me know what type of content, any sort of subjects that you would like me to cover here. And I have, we have the radio shows are every Saturday, but we're going to start getting back into the live online shows during the week. We got to make time for that. I kind of went on a hiatus because of, seeing as many clients as possible, especially during this time of year. But I do want to get back into that. And by the way, we're working on a new membership option on our website, and we will be unveiling that very soon. And so it'll be a very cool community. That's going to be really cool, and people can feel very cool and confident and commenting and connecting, and we'll be telling y'all more about this. But Tobias, thank you so much. Let me know exactly what you'd like me to talk about. I am here for you, and I do appreciate you. Let's see. Okay. Redheaded. Ashley, don't you think sometimes it's different for people in different situations because everyone's different and every family's different? Yes, there is no set rule. Don't buy into that, because that's programming too. Like everybody, like the program of the family should be together and they should have this and everybody should have this and everybody. It's all based on perfection. It's not based on reality. And that's the hardest thing too, is that, there's so many of these programs, like every woman's supposed to want to have a child and everybody's supposed to, do this and this and that and that and those and these and these. Everything's supposed to be just like this cookie cutter way of living. And that's not fair. Right? It's not fair. And to me, sometimes, marriage works for some people. Sometimes marriage doesn't work for some people. Sometimes people get married to the right person that's healthy for them, and sometimes they don't. And it's interesting to me when I hear people say, well, my parents told me never to get a divorce. What? I mean, it's from somebody that's angry and mean and putting you down or gaslighting you. There's a lot of things there. Redhead. Sometimes people need to cut off form to their family, but sometimes just limit contact. That's so true, and have solid boundaries. Sometimes we have to limit our contact. Sometimes we just need solid boundaries. Sometimes we need to cut them off. Sometimes we need a gray rock. Sometimes we just need to move on. Okay. But I do feel like we need to move on after we've done everything we can. And once we've done everything we can, then we don't have any guilt of doing it. You got to do what you got to do. And I don't want anybody to tell you anything different. It's difficult. I'm having trouble because my oldest child has been very mean and emotionally abusive to me. I find myself cutting off from others. Okay. And that happens when a child does that. It's just so challenging. It's so challenging. And I know that, programming is you're supposed to be there with your kid. You're supposed to do this. But if someone, even if it's your child, if you're going through that, you have to ask yourself, you can do everything you can. And then eventually once there comes a time where you have to see them come to you and make some changes. If they're not willing to, we got to move on. And I know that's hard. And I don't express that I don't say that across the board. I mean, I do think that everything is a case by case basis. But sometimes choices that you have to make are not the choices you want to make. And when people make it hard for you after you've tried to make that choice, it's just not right. Right? People will put you down for whatever, and they'll make you feel guilt and shame. But also a lot of times people don't know what you're going through. And if they were going through it, they would feel the same way. David, thank you so much. And I appreciate you donating to the cause here. I appreciate you very much. I'm so glad now I can listen to you live. Before I can't do it due to the fact that I was at work. Now I can. I found you mid-2019 videos about love bombing. That is so awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for helping us out here. It's George is here in the studio too, and we got Buddy here as well. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad that the videos on love bombing helped you when we realize about love bombing and we understand, because love bombing is like the way that we get, that happens. It's so easy because you're finally getting attention from somebody and it feels good. And it is what it is. And we don't realize a lot of times that, this is a pattern and a program, and it's being used to create a reality. And this person uses that type of love bombing, quite often. But then there comes a time when the love bombing stops. And then that's when it gets really, really weird, because you don't really know where things are coming from. And then you start seeing things change and augment. Jessica, great to see you. How are you doing? Yes, redheaded. I would love to talk with you. Yeah, it'd be great. I would love to have some folks on some shows if people are willing to at some point. And I'm not pushing anybody to do this, but if you do want to eventually come on and talk about your story, and we don't always have to use everybody's names and stuff either. But I think it could be very helpful, and maybe we might have more of that content on the private membership site, where we can have some of that content. So it might not have to be, it might not be like national radio unless people want to be on radio. But also, if people would like to talk with me outside of here, just contact me. Go to that contact page on my website, ashleybridges.com, and click on that contact sheet and just send it over to me. Just make sure you put your right email in there, because if you don't, I can't respond. I've had some people lately put in an email, and unfortunately, I can't. It just keeps coming back to me, and I feel bad because I don't think that they think that I reached out. So I feel bad about that. Definitely, I'd love to communicate more with you and learn more about your situation, especially coming into some of the work we're going to be doing in the beginning of the year on parental alienation. Stu, that's a great comment. It's a great concept. The only power people have over you is the power you allow. Exactly. Yeah, we give people our power, right? If we don't watch out, you can give some really challenging people your power. Just got to be really careful with it and be aware of how you deal with people and what you deal with them and how much you do deal with them. 10,000 miles on the RV. That's so cool. That's some travel right there. Let's see here. Ruth, great to have you. Thank you so much for tuning in. How are you doing? Glad to have you very much. Abby, yes, tell it like it is, sister. So glad. I'm glad you tuned in, Abby. Thank you so much. David, you need to cut ties. Done. You only have one life. Don't waste it with the wrong people. So true. So true. Redheaded, having this information is valuable, is powerful. Okay, Dr. Sammy, thank you for tuning in. Dr. Sammy, how are you doing? What is the clearest sign to identifying a narcissist? Wow. There's a lot of them, but okay, let me think what I would say is the clearest sign. I think the clearest sign to me is someone that is around you because they want something from you. A narcissist has a tendency of going through friends very quickly. And I can remember a story, and it's not somebody that I work with, but it's a friend. And she was telling me one time over a dinner that she had been good friends with this girl, and she had been friends with her for many years, and she didn't realize, kind of what she was dealing with. And one day the girl kind of turned on her, and then the next thing you know, they were no longer friends. And the girl that I was meeting with for dinner that night told me, she thought about killing herself over the loss of this friendship. And she was going through some health problems and stuff, and it was about to go through open heart surgery, and various different things was going on in her life. And when she was telling me this story, I felt so bad for her, but at the same time, I realized that she had been discarded, and a narcissist discards people that are no longer worth their time. They can't get anything out of them. I also think that not having any empathy, not having any feeling for the other person, or very, very little. Another one is, and I hate you asked me for one. Another one would be kind of the inflated ego. It's kind of all about them. But I feel like they're very. I feel like they're very fragile individuals, though. And I think that you can see the fragility. You can see the fragileness aspects of them through different things. When you catch different comments and different things, and they can say some really kind of harsh, really kind of crappy stuff. But honestly, I think if you were to say that back to them, you would destroy them. Now, they would try to destroy you. But I think that those are some of the things that I see. That's definitely some of the stuff that I see. That's a big deal. That not having any empathy is a big thing, and that real fragile inner view of themselves that's covered with this outside persona. Now, that's for obviously an overt, not a covert. A covert is a little harder, but what I found with the covert that I think is always very interesting is they talk about their pain and suffering all the time, and that's what you always talk about. So even though they're telling you about how horrible their life is, it's still the center of attention. And the conversations are always about them. That's what I would say. Dr. Sammy, thanks so much for tuning in. Van down by the river, great to see you. Thank you for tuning in. You're such a powerful, intelligent woman. It really gives me hope that I can overcome some personal issues with a significant other. Yes, you definitely can. And overcome some of those personal issues. Really look at yourself, look at the programming, look at that situation, see what's up, see what's right for you. See what's right for you. Redheaded, it's the hardest thing ever, and my oldest son's situation is even more complicated, and I'm at a loss. Yes, we'll definitely have to connect. It's challenging when you go through this process and you're dealing with this. The parental alienation is such an issue, and it's something that we might need to talk about before the holidays, but I'm not, maybe we can start talking about it and then continue on, because there's so many different levels. Dr. Sammy, what's the difference between love bombing and true love? Love bombing ends. Love bombing ends, comes to an end. And I don't think that true love ever ends. I mean, I think that you can unconditionally love somebody forever and ever and ever. And I think you can unconditionally love lots of people. But I do think that the love bombing ends. And that's the difference. Because at some point in time, that comes to an end. And at some point in time, the attitude changes. Marco, one thing I learned, being honest and true to your word. My kids tried me younger, but what it feels like when my kid said, "This dad means what he says." Worked for me. That's cool. Good job, Marco. I'm always impressed by you. I'm so glad that you checked in today. Thanks for tuning in. Jacqueline, great to see you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Van down by the river. I watched your self-help videos for a while. First time catching a live. Sending good vibes to all. Thank you so much for sending good vibes to us. Ruth, thank you so much for tuning in. How are you doing? I'm not sure why she's asking if she's blocked or something. I don't think anybody's blocked on here. Let's see. TS, any advice on distancing from toxic people, especially family members, without being crucified, or at least in a specific way? I gave my all to them and still never was enough. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely gray rock. Any advice on distancing from toxic people? Gray rock, start distancing yourself, not giving them a lot of information, not talking about your personal stuff, not talking about your goals, aspirations, or desires. Really recognizing that, guys, because you know what? When people do not have the best in mind for you, they're not, don't share with them the good stuff in your life. Only share that with the people that you want to share that with. And I would get some distance. I mean, like, I know it's hard around the holiday. You might have to go by there, but I wouldn't spend extra time, on phone calls or texting. I would be, and very much very much gray rock. Very much gray rock. And you know what? If they crucify you, they crucify you, because there's got to be a scapegoat. Somebody's got to be to blame, right? There's a lot of folks, they have to have somebody to talk about. And just assume and some of these families too, they're going to talk about you whether you're there or not. So, because they don't want to look at their own issues or problems. And I think that's a big deal. They don't want to look at their own issues or problems. And I think also you got to weigh the pros and cons. How is it like hanging out with these people? How do I feel? I mean, what is the communication I'm having? How can I limit it down? If somebody's calling you all the time, start putting boundaries down. Put boundaries on how long you're going to spend on the call, when you're going to answer the call, to what extent. What are you going to talk about? What extent are you going to talk to them about? These are very important things. I want you to think about that. Let's see. Yeah, all is good. Nobody is blocked on here. And with my kids, I feel so guilty because I feel like I caused it. And that's part of the personal guilt we have to get over and we have to work on. And it's hard. And there's a lot of forgiveness of ourselves for being in these relationships. A lot of forgiveness of yourself for getting married to that person and doing that. And I get it. It's just, it's not like you expected. There might have been red flags, but it's not like if you really knew what you were getting into, I don't think that you would have married that person. And so, it's about trying to forgive oneself and really trying to think about these types of things. And it's hard because, people will make judgment. Just try not to allow people to judge your life without knowing about it and without knowing what's really happening. in your life. Abby, what is the best way to deal with being discarded? Especially if it comes out of nowhere. It's so confusing and infuriating. Being discarded is challenging. It's hard. And when people discard, just be prepared, because they can come back around and hoover and show up and come back around and do it all again. I think that, when you've been discarded, it's just kind of picking up the pieces and starting to look at the red flags. What happened? Were there things that were going on before the discard? Does this person have a pattern of this? A lot of folks have patterns. Is this a pattern in their life? And it's hard, because when we get discarded, we feel sadness. We feel sadness. That's normal. But we do need to work on our self-esteem and our self-value, because just because somebody discarded us does not mean that we're not valuable. And the greatest thing too is that I think that in the discard, and this is the hardest thing, and I'm telling you something that's like putting the cart in front of the horse, but I do want you to look at the very end, because we might as well look at the end of the tunnel to know where we're going. But you'll realize later on down the road that you'll thank God for the discard. It's just going to take a long time to see it. But once you do see that, you'll realize that, you know what? You probably dodged a bullet. So if you can kind of start looking at that and accepting it, because I've realized that when people discard, or they turn on us, or they dislike us, or they unfriend us, or they whatever that is, it was the best thing possible. Just hurt at the time. But at least, we would have been in a lot different situation had they not discarded. And so just, looking at the self-value, how often are you looking at your value and placing it based on this discard? Because one person discarding you doesn't mean that you're not a valuable person. It just means that they didn't see your value. And if somebody doesn't see your value, you definitely don't need to be around them. David, I'm feeling awesome. So glad that you were feeling awesome. Van down by the river, glad that you're realizing, I guess there is a delay in comments. I did not know that. So half the time I don't even know what's going on this little program here. Makes me think of the Beatles song, Christ, you know it ain't easy. Maybe we're in a good company. Then being like Christ, I got to crucify me. That happened. Then the resurrection. That's hilarious. I like that. How do I heal? Yeah, exactly. We go through this process. I always have to deal with it. You could be the smartest person. You could be, you could be the most smart, spiritually evolved, spiritually fit person. And if your family doesn't see it, they don't see it. Amy, how do I heal from the shock of betrayal? Just found out my husband of 16 years has been having sex with men. Okay. That's a tough one. Wow, that's a tough one. We have to look at the fact that what people do does not directly is not about our value. And that's the hardest thing, is to know that if somebody's doing that, it's not about you being valueless or not having value. It's him dealing with his stuff. And that's a challenging thing. I guess my first question is, have y'all sat down and talked about it? What is your solution for the marriage? Are y'all going to continue to stay married? Are you going to not? And then ask, I guess he did not feel, unfortunately, because of the programmings in our society, I feel like a lot of people are ashamed of their sexuality, and they can't be honest about it. And that's challenging. And again, we're up against a big program in society, because I think that if people would have been raised to accept who they are, we wouldn't have these types of things, and people would honestly just be able to be themselves. And I think the hardest thing, and something that you'll deal with, is just, being married that long. I hope that there was a friendship there, or some sort of friendship there. But then, if there's not really a clear friendship and you aren't best friends, I think it's time to really start getting ready to, start a new chapter in your life and start anew and and really start living for you. I have a lot of advice on this, but it would probably take hours. Stu, topic ideas, how to move on from discard. That's a good one. Hey, can you write that down, George? TS, thank you so much. I appreciate you, TS. Thanks for answering my question. I treasure your hard work, wise words, and helpful content that you share. Much love to you from Spain. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you so much for your donation today. We appreciate it. Thank you. It helps us over here do what we need to do and keep going with the shows and all that stuff. So we do appreciate you. And it just makes us know that you care even more. So we appreciate it. Thank you. Stu, oops, never mind. You just answered that, Ashley. Oh, no, it's a good show. We could do a good show on it. You're right. Discarding, dealing with discards. So did you write that down? Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll do a show on it. I think it's a great idea. It's because it could be a whole hour for sure. I think I turned the heat on too high now. I was like cold, and now it's like blazing in here. Okay. Ruth, setting a boundary that has consequences, make that a pattern. Yes, and you want to be deliberate. So until you really know what you need to do, you want to be deliberate. You want to be consistent all the time on those boundaries. So just remember, once we start it, we can't stop it. You got to be the leader, and so we got to stick to those boundaries. Amy, he is currently in rehab for drugs, and we are divorcing. Oh, goodness. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I recommend, obviously, you're following the protocol. But I would start getting deep into my feelings and thoughts about myself and how I feel about myself. And by him doing this, how that makes me feel about my value. And really start digging into that. Start working on also really getting to know yourself right now. I think like understanding you, your value, what you stand for, your values, understanding that. I actually have a masterclass on living your true life, the 10-day challenge, and it's good because it'll walk you through. It's basically like a primer and like a concept for life after any toxic relationship or after any relationship that wasn't working or after any relationship for that matter. When we get back into our own life and figure out who we are, it might be helpful for you to really do that because, you're going to be basically rebuilding and then probably building for the first time, getting past this and overcoming this and then being able to move on. But I know that things are going to get better moment by moment. It's just, it's going to take time. And I wish I had a pill that you could take and it would all just go away or it would just all be miraculously better. But I don't have that. But what I do have is I know that if we can start working on your self-esteem and self-value and really look at that and start disconnecting and getting emotional distance from that relationship, it would be powerful. Redheaded. Exactly, Ashley. David, it hurts on the moment. Yes, it does hurt in the moment for sure. I agree. Ruth, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you as well. Thank you. I appreciate you. And redheaded, I definitely need to be consistent with my grown children. I was too inconsistent when they were little. Time to toughen up. Yeah, and we have to be consistent. Consistency is key. And that's the thing that I really want. The thing is that, don't do anything haphazardly, or because of emotional pull. No matter how stressful the situation is at the time, just step back and try to realize and analyze what is the best case scenario right now for me to do. How do I respond? How do I deal with it? And how do I do the thing that's at the best level for everybody concerned? Even if people are being nasty, gnarly, lying, cheating, whatever that looks like, we gotta get above it. And in order to get above it, we got to start analyzing what's best for me, but what's best for all concerned. How do I act in the proper way? How do I deal with this in the proper manner? How do I move forward in the proper way, in the proper manner? And how do I get to where I need to go and do what I need to do? And is there some things that I'm letting go? Are there some things that I'm not speaking about? Are there some things that I need to bring up? Are there some things that I am not looking at myself about? Are there some things that I need to understand what I stand for and what I value and who I am? And that's why we did the show today on the radio. It was funny because at first I was like, what are we going to talk about? But, it's all about being thoughtful and consistent. And it's all about really focusing on what we need. And because remember, nobody's going to give us a Medal of Honor, at this end of the lifetime and say, you sacrificed yourself for everybody else. Nobody's going to give you the Medal of Honor for living in that toxic relationship. I've talked to some folks, and some of my clients, and, they've been in these relationships for 15, 20 years, and it's tough. And there's a breaking point at some point. And, we have to end the cycle somewhere. Some of us are reliving the cycle from our parents' dynamic, reliving it. We married our mother, we married our father. So, we married somebody, some derivative of that, and we're dealing with that pain and suffering on a daily basis. We've got to start looking at ourselves and realize we got this one life to live right now. How do we make it the best? How do we make it the best life? how do we make it the best life possible? And that's what we have to think about. And those are the things that we have to overcome. And those are the programming concept. Like, really start thinking about that kind of stuff. What are the things that I've been taking that I haven't really focused on in my life? What are some of the things that I just haven't really been even thinking about? What are some of the things in my life that I could do differently? What are some of the things that I'm on autopilot with? What are some of the thoughts that I have about my life that just aren't true? What are some of the limitations in my life that I have that I've put in my own life? And I really want you to think about that, because many of us have these limitations in our own life that we've created because we believe that we're not something, or we can't do something, or this is not right for us, or that's the wrong thing, or society won't accept it, or whatever that looks like. And I want us to start looking at that and analyzing that, right? I mean, I do. Amy, I'm so glad that, I appreciate you tuning in, and definitely let me know how you're doing. Definitely keep me in contact of how you're doing, because I know that this is overwhelming and this is a big thing to deal with. And just take it one step at a time. And, my thing too is that one of the things I've realized as well is that when you're dealing though with these types of things, try to really focus on you and don't look to the outside. Like, our friends will have our own thought processes about what to do. Our friends are going to make these judgment calls and all this stuff. And sometimes when you're talking to people that have a stake in the matter, they're going to say what they're going to say. And I'm just saying, I think we can talk about it like here and this is good. But, the best part about life is that we can always do things different. We can always do a redo. We can always change up things. And I think that, sometimes these chapters in our life are exactly what we need to be living our truth and to be living a happier life. And we're here for you. So anything that any help that you need, or any help you need in solving anything, we're here. You can definitely also reach out to me. Go to that contact page on the website, ashleyburge.com, and then just send me an email for sure. Just glad that you tuned in. Redheaded, great question, Ashley. Thank you. Let's see. Skorda. That's a great name. I like that. You are the best. Thank you so much for all of your videos, Ashley. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Yeah, I'm just glad that y'all tuned in today. I got to jump here in a second because we got to take care of some other things today. George and I are going to work on some stuff, and we have some other videos coming out. I just put out a video on YouTube on dealing with other people's drama. And the reason why I put that video out is because we have to be careful. Some people, we need to get involved, and some we don't. And I found that a lot of times when we do get involved, though, we have to really know why we're getting involved. And if we get involved, we have to really think about that, because things change. And what I found in certain types of personal dramas with friends and relatives and family members, honestly, people can change on a dime, and you could be there, basically holding the proverbial bag, you may say. And so I don't know if you've checked that video out. Also, Lisa and I've done a couple of videos lately that are out as well. And any other content and ideas that you have that you would like to discuss or have me discuss, I would love to hear them. We have that one on Discard, so we might discuss that too. We definitely do a video on Discard as well. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Redheaded, I started all over. White picket fence went up. I see. That's the thing, is like, we want to look at our situation and we want to take out all the image-based stuff and really see it for what it is. And because some of the stuff is illusion, and we have to look through that. And it's hard sometimes because sometimes we'll be in denial. But as we walk through it and we begin to understand ourselves and understand ourselves clearly, that's when we get. So remember, the last thing I want to leave y'all with today is not, wow, I'm living this great job, I'm doing this great job, or I'm running this nonprofit, or whatever. Purpose to me is getting to know yourself to the core and understanding why you do what you do, and start making changes to those core issues and finding your core values, and being able to have you as an individual understand you through and through and understand why you do what you do. And that to me is strategic. And that to me is purpose. And once you understand who you are honestly, away from all the programming and the nonsense and the things that we were raised and told as a child, and the limitations that we have, and all that stuff, once we start peeling the onion, and it takes time because we got to look at it. And that's something I really like to do with folks, is I really like to deprogram, right? And find because I have to find your programs, and then we find them, and you're like, whoa, holy heck, I didn't even know that existed. And that's what we do. And we start, taking those apart, and we start, deconstructing these programs, put a monkey wrench in it. And we start leveling these programs, and all of a sudden we start feeling better. We start feeling like ourselves. We start being happier, healthier individuals. And that's where the rubber meets the road. And so if we can start dealing with illusion and letting go of that, that's first and foremost, and then keep moving on and on and on, finding ourselves, connecting with this. Why do I feel this way? Why do I feel depressed? Why do I feel sad? Why do I feel, what are my thoughts in my head that are creating this reality? Start journaling, start getting it out on paper. Stu, thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year's, everyone. We'll be back next week, by the way. And in the meantime, yes, have a great day. Have a great holiday. But we'll be back next week. We will not be live, though, on Christmas Day, because I found out that the stations are going to be closed, and they're running, I think, holiday music on a lot of them on Christmas Day. But we'll be back next week. Abby, it's great that you tuned in. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's just an outstanding show. AB, thank you so much. I so appreciate you tuning in. It means a lot to me. Thank you, David. Thank you so much. And everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Let me know. Scorda, thank you so much. Likewise, take care. Definitely appreciate you tuning in. We'll be back next week. We'll be talking about some topics, probably dealing with these types of topics and looking into our lives and understanding them and getting what we need to get and going through that process. And just remember, the little programs you find about the way you act or how you feel around certain people and how you respond, is start looking at that. Start looking at the people. Start connecting with those people that really matter. Start decluttering with these people that are maybe narcissistic, or these people that really don't care. Really start looking at it, digging deep into that, seeing it. Because the more that we clean out, and the more we clean out our garden of friends and family, we can grow more things. We can grow more friendships, more relationships. So, you might be losing one person or two people or three people, but it's not lost. It's just you're letting go of things that aren't at the highest good, and things that just need to be augmented and changed. Redheaded, it's cool that you were on the radio. I'm glad. Yeah, we've been on the radio since 2012, so I appreciate you. So it's very cool, and we're on a lot of stations. I need to eventually get. I really need to get the station list and be able to put that up here in the future on a day so everybody can listen. And we're not in every single state or anything, but we're in several states. We can put that information up. And so definitely, Abby, thank you for tuning in. TS, looking forward to the next live. God bless you all. Virtual hug. Thank you for the virtual hug. We appreciate that, Sue. Awesome to see you. Laura Porter, good to see you. Validating and encouraging stuff. Thank you, Laura, so much for tuning in. Means the world to me. Yep, Abby, time to pick the weeds. Exactly. Time to let it go. Time to let it go. We got other things to do. We got friends to make, relationships to have, people to know, and great things to happen. We got to have time to. Kevin, great to see you. Thank you so much for tuning in, Kevin. Always a pleasure. I'm glad that you're here. To everybody, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your weekend. Let me know if I can help with anything. I'm here. We're here. Let us know of content that you'd like to talk about. We want to do that because it just matters. You matter, and you matter to us. So have a good one. Have a great day. And don't forget to live your true life. Bye, friends. Take care. Bye.